Fresh off of an earnings call that did not go well, there was a big detail that they didn't talk about on the call. They owe $5 billion from Disney to Comcast. Let's talk about who's paying for Epic Universe here on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is wiffle ball enthusiast, Mr. VashSky. Vash, are you hitting those wiffle balls?
I guess I am, but you know what I'm not hitting, though? I'm not hitting $5 billion there. But you know who is? Well, it looks like a Disney's, and they're hitting that right over to Comcast, of all people. Man, oh man. That Brian Roberts, he really does have it out for that Bob Iger, I tell you what.
It truly is amazing. Let's talk about this story out of Variety. One of my favorite streaming news reporters here, Mr. Todd Spangler, says Disney says it might have to pay Comcast up to $5 billion more to buy out Hulu. The dispute is over the fair value of Hulu. Disney and Comcast remain locked in a dispute over what Hulu is worth, and Disney says it might have to pay up to $5 billion more to complete the buyout of NBC Universal's 33% stake in the streamer. You know why this is? Because they bought the other 33% of Hulu when they bought Fox. You know, when they bought Fox for $70 billion, they made an agreement. First of all, they obtained that other 33% of Hulu. They made an agreement at that point with Brian Roberts from Comcast and Universal, which owned the other 33% of Hulu, and said, yes, we're going to have what is called a put-call arrangement. The put being one side can force the other, and the call meaning that other side can force whatever remaining side is there. Valuing the streamer, well, let's just read what Todd Spangler says. Last year, Disney accelerated those negotiations to buy Comcast's NBCU stake in Hulu to take full ownership of the streaming service. In December 2023, the Mouse House paid $8.61 billion to Comcast, which represented 1/3 of the $27.5 billion guaranteed floor value for Hulu that was set when the companies entered into their agreement in 2019. Hey, who was CEO of the Walt Disney Company at this point? Was this one they could blame on Bob Chapek?
I don't think they can do that because Bob Iger doesn't leave until 2020. This is squarely in Bob Iger's purview.
That's very, very true. This is Bob's fault. Of course, either way, it would be Bob's fault, but specifically Bob Iger's fault. But so far, the two sides have been unable to agree on a fair market value for Hulu. During the initial phase of the appraisal process, Disney's third-party appraiser arrived at a valuation that fell below the $27.5 billion guaranteed floor value. What? Disney's appraiser actually was below the floor? That is unthinkably low here. That is, okay. So let me explain this. It's supposed to be that Disney hires an appraiser and Comcast hires an appraiser. And if they're within 10% of each other, they'll just put them together and divide them by two. In this case, that's supposed to trigger a third party. If it's more than a 10% difference, it triggers a third bank that's supposed to come in and figure all of this out. It is absolutely unbelievable that it would be below the $27.5 billion guaranteed floor value. That is highway robbery, because right now Netflix is profitable and Hulu is profitable right behind it. Hulu is a fully formed streaming service. I'm offended on behalf of Comcast on this one. Shocker there.
Well, and it gets worse, Jonas. I mean, this is Hulu after the Walt Disney Company has kind of owned a majority stake in it, in which they weren't, necessarily promoting it, in which they weren't pushing for it. They weren't delivering content for it on a regular cadence as they would maybe with Disney Plus and some of their other streaming platforms and so forth. So this has been suppressed in terms of its popularity and in terms of its valuation. Comcast obviously knows that, and still they're valuing even less than that.
Yeah, this is a ridiculous claim on behalf of Disney at this point. If they think that this thing is worth less than $27.5 billion, this is the future of the company. I'm shocked at this. Okay, in May of 2024, Disney and NBCU entered into a confidential arbitration to resolve the dispute over the appraisal process to determine the fair value of Hulu. It doesn't sound very confidential at this point, by the way, in which the parties seek declaratory relief, equitable relief, and unspecified damages. Disney disclosed per the company's agreement, if the two sides' valuations are not within 10%, the banks that they enlisted would pick a third firm. According to the Disney filing, NBCU's appraisals were deemed to be valid, and a third party's appraiser equity fair value determination were consistent with the NBCU appraiser's valuation. Disney would be required to pay NBCU an additional amount of approximately $5 billion as its share of the difference between the equity fair value and the guaranteed floor. That suggests, oh, this is beautiful. That suggests that Comcast third-party appraisal valued Hulu in the neighborhood of $40.8 billion. Wow. If the third appraiser's equity fair value determination for Hulu were between the valuations of Disney's and NBCU's appraisers, the incremental amount Disney would have to pay would be between 0 and approximately $5 billion. The outcome of the Hulu deal arbitration is uncertain, and we cannot reasonably estimate the impact of the arbitration. Oh, this is absolutely amazing. And by the way, Brian Roberts is absolutely correct here for this quote. He touted Hulu as a scarce kingmaker asset last September and suggested the synergies Hulu would afford a full owner would be worth $30 billion even before accounting for the value of Hulu itself.
Oh,
I'm just going to say this. Brian Roberts, whether or not Bob Iger actually believes what he's saying here, Brian Roberts is correct.
yes.
Hulu is the savior of Disney Plus at this point, because the dirty secret is that Disney Plus is not profitable. When they go out and they say that combined DTC at the Walt Disney Company is profitable at this point, that streaming altogether is profitable, that is not because Disney Plus is profitable. It's because Hulu is profitable, and even together, it's below. It falls below. It's a loss of like 19 million this last quarter, even strapping those two streaming services together. Hulu has double the average revenue per user of Disney Plus most quarters. Right now, nobody is watching Disney Plus except for Bluey, and they don't put ads on Bluey in the same way that they put ads on everything else. Hulu is fully formed, has a robust ads model. And forgive me, I did a lot of research into Hulu when I was doing my basically many pages on the merger between Fox and Disney. Hulu is a gem here, and Disney is lucky that they have figured out a way to get their claws into it. So Brian Roberts is absolutely correct when he says that this is a kingmaker asset. This is the only thing saving the Walt Disney Company right now. It's the only reason that they can say that streaming is working, is because they can insert Hulu into the middle of this. And I don't believe for a second that ESPN Plus actually transitioned $73 million in revenue over the last year on losing 300,000 subscribers. That is a ridiculous statement. And I'm not alleging any fraud on the part of the Disney company. I'm alleging some creative legal accounting on the part of the Disney company there. This is ridiculous on Disney's part. And I'm glad to see them pay the fair value of this asset if it does get to $5 billion. Vash, I've been ranting for quite some time now. Do you have any thoughts?
Many. I mean, look, we have been predicting for a long time that they weren't going to get out of this deal with only paying, what, 8.6, I believe, billion. Comcast was absolutely going to ask for a lot more, and rightfully so. Like you said, this is consequential to the state of streaming, to the streaming wars, obviously. Like Brian Roberts said, it's a kingmaker, and Comcast knows that Disney is relying on Hulu as part of their streaming strategy. I think Disney really thought, they believed that, we'll buy in on the ground floor with an established brand like Hulu, and we'll just build on top of that with Disney Plus. And, well, I mean, Bob Iger still wants to go ahead and do that in some regard, in that he wants to combine Hulu and Disney Plus under the Disney Plus banner. He believes that the core Disney brand is what's going to shepherd this forward. But in the modern era, it's all about Hulu, something he doesn't quite understand. But this is now imperative to the whole argument, because Disney Plus really didn't flourish in the way that they had originally conceived. the only way that this whole DTC strategy of the Walt Disney Company is going to work at all is if there is Hulu integration. They must have this brand. They must have this streaming service. And honestly, it's going to be at any cost that they could possibly shell out. They're too far in, Jonas. They've already shelled out $70 billion for their stake in Hulu via the Fox purchase. They've already committed to buying an additional, $8.6 billion worth of Hulu. They have to go through with this deal.
Right.
And Brian Roberts knows that.
You're absolutely correct. And I just want to point out here, for those of you keeping track at home, the purchase of Pixar was $7 billion. The purchase of Lucasfilm was $4.06 billion. And the purchase of Marvel was $4 billion. And when I say that they need to pay an additional $5 billion on top of the $8.61 billion that they're paying for a 33% share of Hulu, the answer is yes, they do need to do that, because this is the only way to save the company at this point. So this is justice, for lack of a better term here. It's also the clearest path forward for building the company that Bob Iger described to investors all those years ago. That being said, we want to throw this to our commenters. Do you enjoy when we talk about my pet issue here? That is the profitability of Hulu. Let us know in the comment section down below. Hit that like button. Of course, let us know your real thoughts there. And of course, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.